news just keeps on coming for Planet of the Apes fans, as we just got tons of new images, concept art, story and character details, and interviews with the cast and crew of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. If you like what I do here and want to show your support, be sure to hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. Enjoy the video. Hello everybody and welcome back to Ape Nation, your #1 source for all things Planet of the Apes on YouTube. My name is Josh, and today I am talking about yet another massive info dump that we just got for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Empire Magazine has just released their full spread on the movie, and I've pulled out a bunch of highlights and photos and concept art and all this other awesome stuff to talk about with you all here today. Unlike how I usually do these types of videos, I'm not going to read through the full article just because it's really long and there's a lot of stuff to go through. If you really want to check it out yourself, it's now on store stands. You could also buy the digital version. I will put a link down in the description below if you want to check out the full spread on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. But I've pulled out a bunch of highlights from the article that I think are really interesting, that I think are really exciting, as well as a ton of photos that I'm going to get into and show you all. So I'm just going to dive right in and start talking about all the stuff that I found most interesting in this entire spread. The first thing that I wanted to get into is all the stuff about Wes Ball when he first came on to this movie, how he was approached for it. The first thing that stood out was when he was initially approached by Disney and 20th Century Studios to direct the movie, he actually said no. And the reason for it was he wasn't interested in just doing a part 4 of a story. But when he came to the conclusion that he could tell something new and really do something different, there's actually a quote where he says, "We can create ape cultures, ape societies, new lore. We get to set a whole new trajectory." And I thought that was really exciting because that's one of the things that I'm most excited for, is that we're going to go on a whole new adventure, a whole new story, and a whole new place and time. The fact that he's excited about that just as much as I'm excited to see it is really, really cool. And then him, as well as the producer, Joe Hardwick, they address a question that so many fans have been asking and talking about, and maybe some people have been kind of upset about, and that is the fact that this story is not about Cornelius. It's not about Caesar's son and takes place 300 years in the future. I know there are a lot of fans that really wanted to see the story continue with Cornelius, but the reasoning for that was, and quote, "It was the super obvious way to go, but not a very interesting one, because then it does just feel like a 4th film." And I completely understand where they were coming from with this. Like I said earlier, they wanted to do something new. They wanted to build out the lore. They wanted to create the ape cultures and the societies and the civilization. And you can't do that if you're just taking the story forward 10 years and the world is still basically the same as it was in war. And so I personally am all about this decision. I know some people aren't going to be satisfied with that answer, and that's totally okay. But for me, I think it makes a lot of sense why they didn't want to do that. A lot of filmmakers would have easily just picked up that ball and gone with that direction. I wouldn't say it's an easy way to go forward, but it's not exactly the most outside the box way to go forward with the franchise. So I like that they took this new direction, and I'm really excited to see what kind of new trajectory Wes Ball, his entire cast and crew have been cooking up for this new movie. The next bit of information we got is actually about a new character. We didn't really learn about this character. We just got an image that you can see right here. This is a character named Koro, who is an older ape played by Neil Sandilands. To be honest with you, I'm not really familiar with this actor at all. I do know that they were on the CW Flash TV show, which was pretty popular, but other than that, I'm not familiar with this actor almost at all. I hope that he's great, but just from the look at this image that we got, he definitely strikes me as an elder of the tribe, you know, the ones in the tribe that are more respected, that people go to for guidance, that kind of role. Because it looks to me like he's talking to Noah in this picture. I like the idea of a character like this. I like that this is kind of part of what Wes Ball was talking about, of building out those cultures and building out that civilization. It actually kind of reminds me of Charlton Heston's character from the 2001 Planet of the Apes. We didn't get much details about who this character is or what the role is, or for all we know, this is the only scene they have in the entire movie, but I'm excited to learn more about him. Another interesting tidbit we got is about the ape language and how it's utilized in this movie. As we all know, in the first 3 movies, the Caesar trilogy, apes primarily were communicating using sign language, right? In Rise of the Planet of the Apes and in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, for the most part, it's all sign language, with Caesar having lines of dialogue here and there, but still using a lot of sign language. War for the Planet of the Apes, we started getting into a little bit more apes speaking in fluent English, but it was still very much broken up, not super elaborate, not super articulate conversations. But in this movie, they are full on having English conversations, but they are still using some sign language. In a quote from producer Joe Hartwig, they do some signing still, but they are more articulate. I like this a lot. That was something I never even thought of, is that there would still be apes using sign language at this point. But I do like that they're still using it. I mean, I honestly thought at this point they would be fully speaking English, but I'm definitely fascinated to see how evolved the language has become. In the trailer so far, it seems like it's become much more closer to how we as humans speak, but maybe there's still a couple of hurdles they have to climb before they get there, which is why they're still using some sign language. But we'll see. For all we know, maybe it's like a tribe thing. Certain apes in certain parts of the world are full on fluently speaking English, whereas in other parts of the world, they could be signing still, like they were in Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes. So we'll see. So next up, we got a bunch of new information about Proximus Caesar. I've talked about this character at length already about how excited I am, and all these details have just gotten me even more excited. So the first bit of information that we got is actually about the armor that Proximus is wearing. So one of the quotes says that Romanesque armor made from the scavenged remains of human things is what Proximus and his tribe are wearing in this movie. I'm not quite so sure where they got the idea to create armor like that. I don't know if maybe at some point they found like history books or images from the Roman Empire, things like that, but they found a way to take remaining human clothing, remaining human items and weaponry and whatever else to create this armor that is reminiscent of the Roman Empire armor. And I think that's really, really cool. And it definitely seems very fitting for this type of character who seems like he's gone a little bit off the deep end and is kind of unhinged. So I think that's really fitting. On Proximus Caesar and the legacy of Caesar in this movie, here's another quote that with any great historical figure, there is a legacy, and that legacy can be properly remembered, or it can be twisted and used for gain, which is said about Proximus Caesar. This is just telling more and more about who this guy is and how he is essentially taking the ideas and legacy of Caesar, who he was and what he stood for, and twisting them and using them to scare people and to manipulate people and to make people think he is best ape to ever be. And we've already heard a lot of things like this, but they really are hammering home the idea that this character of Proximus Caesar is just taking these ideas of Caesar and using them to do really bad things and using them to do harm to the ape society that he's created. It seems like potentially trying to do harm to the ape society as a whole on a global scale if he can, which I would imagine is why he's after electricity, after human technology. So I'm more and more fascinated with how this idea is going to be implemented in the movie. One other small but really interesting tidbit about Proximus Caesar, and this is something I speculated about when we first got the trailer in my trailer breakdown video, is I said that I think Proximus Caesar is a bonobo and not a chimpanzee. And I had a couple people in the comments say, no, he's a chimpanzee. I'm pretty sure it's a chimp. Well, we actually have confirmation that Proximus Caesar is in fact a bonobo, which is the same ape as Koba. I don't think that means he's going to be a descendant of Koba, but it is interesting that this is going to be our second bonobo villain in the franchise. So I personally don't think it's going to mean too much, but it is interesting that they've decided to go that route with this character in terms of what species of ape he is. Now we've gotten to another bit of information, and this is just a small fun little thing, but it did make me wonder about a couple of things. So in the article, it's confirmed that apes have learned how to domesticate birds, such as Noah's pet golden eagle. So yeah, I think it's really cool that they're taking that approach and having the apes, again, become more and more human-like by doing things like this, like domesticating pets. And it makes me wonder, are we going to see apes with dogs? Are we going to see apes that have some other animal? I think that's definitely something we haven't really seen before in the Planet of the Apes series, as far as I can remember. I don't think in the original series we ever saw apes having pets or any sort of domesticated animal other than horses. So I'm very curious to see where they go with that, if they explore that much at all, or if this is just a one-time thing and Noah has a pet golden eagle. But we'll see. And then finally we get into some more little juicy tidbits about the deeper questions within the movie. And something that writers Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver talked about is, how can apes and humans live together? That's a question that the series always asked, a according to them. It's something that they really wanted to continue working on in Kingdom. The question of tribalism, survival, and compatibility is definitely revisited. I think that's really exciting. The fact that there's so few humans in this movie makes them talking about that. It makes them asking that question even more interesting, because at this point in history, humans look like they're all but extinct. Obviously, they are still around. They're mindless animals at this point, but they're still around. But for all intents and purposes, they're kind of an endangered species, if not almost extinct. So I'm really fascinated to see how this movie takes that question and answers it and handles the idea of apes and humans living together, if there can even be a harmony between the two, because based on what we've seen in the trailer and based on what we see in the previous 3 films, it really just doesn't seem like they will ever be able to live together. So I'm really curious to see if maybe this movie or even this whole trilogy can continue talking about that and continue driving forward the idea of apes and humans eventually having some kind of peace and living in harmony in some way. Or it will just end the same way it's always ended, which is there never will be a true peace between them. Next up, there's a quote from writer Rick Jaffa that I thought was really interesting. What he says is, "There is a discussion about Caesar in the movie, and there is a struggle to keep his legacy alive." There's not really much context when he talks about this, but I thought that was really fascinating. And what I assume is going to be the case, or at least what he's talking about, is that maybe it's not necessarily about a specific character trying to keep the legacy of Caesar alive, but rather the grander theme of the movie and the ideas put forward in the movie with characters like Proximus Caesar, who seems to be trying to just completely erase the idea and legacy of Caesar, whereas character like Noah, who doesn't know anything about Caesar, maybe as he discovers more about him and his tribe learn more about the actual history of apes. That's where the clash comes in, trying to keep the true history alive as someone who is basically trying to be a dictator of the ape civilization, tries to wipe it all away. I think that would be a really fascinating conflict to have in this movie. I think that sounds like the way they're going about it, but this is all speculation based on one quote from the writer, so I have no idea, but I think that would be a really, really great approach. Couple other small things. I just put out a video talking about Andy Serkis and why he isn't in the movie, and in it I mentioned that he had a Zoom call with Owen Teague, who's playing Noah in this movie, that he was kind of mentoring him. So what I didn't know is that Andy Serkis actually was doing line readings during the auditions for in the movie, and he was actually on hand as a mentor to the main cast who played all the main apes. And he was really just there teaching them about how to use performance capture technology, how to act within it. I think it's really encouraging, like I said already, that Andy Serkis has been a guide on this movie and a guide to these ape actors. Obviously, I don't think it's necessary to have him there, but if you have him available, use him. There really is no better person to be a mentor to these actors who are playing apes than Andy Serkis, who is the one who has played the best ape of all. So really, really happy to hear that he was involved in the process of bringing this movie to life. Really makes me excited, and it definitely feels like Andy Serkis and Caesar's legacy is going to continue living on in this movie. And then the one final tidbit of information we got is that this movie is going to be a coming of age story, which I think was kind of already a given, seeing as Noah is a younger character. We've already talked about how he's not quite a full adult, but he's not really a kid anymore at this point in his story, and that is the perfect starting point for a coming of age type of story. I'm perfectly okay with that. I like those types of stories. I think it's something a little bit refreshing and can harken a little bit back to what we got with Rise of the Planet of the Apes in a way. So I think this is a great direction to go. I'm really excited to hear that. Really, really fascinated to see how they handle it and what the Planet of the Apes of it all can be applied to a coming of age story, and vice versa, how you can take that and inject it into the Planet of the Apes legacy and the lore and the mythology of it all. So on top of all this information, we also got a bunch of new photos. I'm not going to spend too much time on these just because they're just photos, so there's not really too much to dive into, but the first photo we get is one of Noah. It looks like they are continuing the method of respect, the hand gesture that they did in the first 3 movies. At least that's what I'm assuming is happening in this scene, but we'll see. We get another shot of Raka, the orangutan, and Noah's friend. We don't get a lot of information about the character here, just another image, and it looks great. Again, the CGI is looking phenomenal in this movie. Every single shot that I've been seeing so far, just incredibly photoreal, and the attention to detail, the eyes and the hair, all the features, it's really, really stunning. We got another shot of May. Now it does seem to really confirm that shot of the apes approaching Proximus Caesar's beach, his kingdom, if you will. They're being led there in chains, as you see a gorilla wearing that same type of armor behind her. What I'm most curious about is how this entire entire sequence unfolds. How do they get there? Why are they there? Of course, there's that whole idea of them being taken there, like in Apocalypto, which was the influence for this movie from Wes Ball. And then here we have another new shot of Noah's two chimp friends, Suna and Anaya. I believe Suna is the one closest to the camera. And so again, not too much to go on here, but just the visuals, the level of detail, the photorealism is just continuing to outdo itself. It looks really, really phenomenal. And then the last picture we have here is a picture of Noah, and I think this is Anaya. It might be another ape. I'm not really sure, but some sort of love interest potentially for Noah, unless they're just friends. I can't really tell. If this is a romantic interest for Noah, my only hope and request is that it's a little more fleshed out than what we got with Caesar and Cornelia in Dawn and War for the Planet of the Apes. Not saying that I really had much of a critique of those movies, but that was just something I wish they'd done more with. There wasn't really any development. It's kind of just there for those two characters. Whereas with this, I hope they have a little bit more development of a relationship rather than just she's there and he's the main character. You know what I mean? So that's my only concern there, but I would like to believe that maybe they learned that lesson from those movies and are going to do that a little bit more here. And it seems like Suna and Anaya are both going to be somewhat important to this story and to Noah as characters. So I'd like to believe they're going to be pretty fleshed out, at least on some level. So I'm hopeful and I like this image. It looks great. Again, the CGI just looks incredible. Really, really excited about all these images. And on top of those images, we also got a little bit of concept art from the movie. The first bit we got is something similar to a shot we already got from the trailer, which is the apes looking out into a telescope. What they're looking at, why they're looking at it, I don't know, but the image itself looks really cool. We got another piece of concept art, which is showing Proximus Caesar and his army in battle using their new electric weapons. I don't know how far into the movie this is. I don't know if this is going to be like the big climactic battle, but just based on this art alone, it seems like it's going to be one hell of a ride. It seems like it's going to be really epic. So I'm definitely excited to see this scene in action. So guys, there was a lot to cover here today. If you want to check out the Empire Magazine article covering all things about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, you can check out the link down below if you want to buy a copy, or you can get it on store shelves now. It's a really great read. I would highly recommend checking it out. There's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot to get excited about. There's so much that I am so looking forward to about this movie. It seems like it's going to be jam-packed with a lot of really interesting and really exciting new stuff that is going to further develop this franchise that we all know and love. And I'm really, really stoked. I really can't wait. I'm already sold that it's going to be great. So far, I think we are in for a really, really big treat come May 24th next year. I want to know what you guys think of all the stuff that we got here. I want to know what you think of the new images. I want to know what you think of the concept art, all the new tidbits of information that we got from the cast and the crew, and all the stuff that Wes Ball had to say about making the movie and his approach to it. What do you think about taking the story 300 years in the future instead of focusing on Cornelius? So much to talk about. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for checking out today's video here on Ape Nation. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all things apes. I'll catch you in the next one, so until then, goodbye.